can say this about season 4. It is going to be so worth the wait.
Nowhere, actually.
A wrecking machine. I'll take it.
I'm still figuring out my own style, Mark, actually.
It was great.
It took 2 minutes and I had to answer, yeah, go for it.
Are you sure you're not interested? I was like, don't ask me again. I can't refuse that twice.
In Holland, in one country.
She got me so deep and underwater and I drank it. That's not good.
You'll try chocolate from South Africa to Australia to England. It will taste so different.
So it's been really amazing that it's been with you after 10 long years.
The first title we were messing around with, we were going to call it Lockdown. Yeah. And then after a while, we actually kind of realised, God, this is dragging on a lot longer than what we thought it was going to be.
I didn't want to give people a reminder.
Our bass player has a band. We were like, let's go on the road, man. But and then it just came to a screeching halt.
We had to work on like how I was biting the carrot. Like I had to do it very purposefully, you know? You didn't want a weak bite, but you didn't want a bite that was too strong.
Someone jumps the stage and one of our techs just body slams him to the ground and you can see me kick him.
I guess I was too distracted. I was having too much fun. Never a bad thing.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Jonah. Hello.
Hello, Mark. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts, based here in Seattle, Washington, in the United States. And thank you so much for joining me on this Tuesday, the 27th of April, 2021. And a few quick housekeeping things before we get to my interview. Coming up tomorrow, Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, I have Motor Jesus joining me from Germany. They are a rock and roll / heavy metal band. Been around for a while, so I'm looking forward to talking to their lead singer, who I have never met before. And then, as some people know, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break from the live streams for the rest of this week at least, so that I can get my second COVID vaccine jab and hopefully not have any kind of side effects from it, but just in case I didn't want to book anything. But having said that, next week on Monday, I have a virtual interview scheduled at 10 a.m. And I also have one scheduled for Wednesday at noon. And if you want to know who's coming to the virtual studio, follow me as Eclectic Arts Media, one word, on Instagram. That's where I post everything first. And then some of that information I migrate over to Facebook, but the majority of everything goes to Instagram first. So Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you could subscribe to my channel, like the video, and hit notifications if you want to know what's coming up, that's always appreciated. And if you're on the Twitch side of things, if you could follow me over there, that's also appreciated as well. Doesn't cost you anything. And if you happen to be someone who is so inclined and really like what I do, then I always have a PayPal me link in the description below if you'd like to make a tip or donation. All that goes right back into me basically keeping Eclectic Arts going with gear and backdrops and all that kind of fun stuff. So I just put it right back into what I do. So again, if you're so inclined, it's down there in the YouTube description of every video that I have on here. And let's get to things today, this afternoon here in Seattle. It's actually not a bad day. Started to get some sun out here. So my guest today is a progressive rock band from Canada. Their new album, the Wring 2 Project Cypher, is coming out on May 28th. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio, Don DeWolf from The Wring, and that's W-R-I-N-G. Hi, Don.
Hey, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, sir?
Good. Sorry for the glitchy video. I don't know what's going on, but hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Not a problem at all. It's almost like you're in your album cover a little bit or something.
I do feel like I live that. Yes.
Okay. Well, got a chance to check out some of your music, and I'm new to the Ring and everything that you've been doing, but I was really blown away by the talent from everybody, including yourself as a guitar player. So, kind of walk me back, please. So, this is the second album that you put out as the Ring, W-R-I-N-G?
Correct. Yes. So you go back to I guess go back to 20 years. I've been a guitar player all my life, and it's funny, you grow up in a relatively small town, and when you play rock and roll, it's covers, and that's what the bars want, because that's what sells drinks. That's the demand, and there is always an economic dimension to music, sadly. So, that was the path I was on, and then I would say probably about 20 years ago, I realized that I was really missing out on something, and I think it coincided with the introduction of software that will record multi-track. It makes such a huge difference, doing it that way versus the old tape recorder, even the multi-track tape recorder. Like, it's a hassle, right? And I think having software that does that sort of thing, you put an idea down, and then you put a little bass track or a little drum track to it, and all of a sudden you feel like you've created something, and there's so much joy in that. I ran with it, and I think around 2015, 5-6 years ago, I had quite a body of work, and I wanted to get it into the world, because I felt like at that point I matured enough and had enough material that was good enough that I could put it out there. So I started looking for some guys, and found some local players who were awesome guys, and we jammed it out, and they learned my songs, and we recorded the first Ring album and put it out in 2017. And then moving from there, we played some gigs, had some fun, but again, you're in a climate where cover bands sell drinks, and original bands are hurry up and play Freebird. It's play something I can dance to, play something, because I tend to write in odd times, or odd quirky stuff. You listen to it, right? So you kind of have the idea, and you can't necessarily dance to it. So then I don't care, because all I want to do is write music and put it out there. And there are people who do dig on that sort of thing. So that I came to the point where I had to make a decision of how I was going to proceed. And with the pandemic, there's a lot of pro guys sitting at home. They're not touring. They don't have their own revenue streams. So reached out to some of these guys, and was shocked to find that they were interested in doing this. So Project Cypher was a Ring album, because essentially I write everything. I am the Ring, essentially, and these guys, but they took it on with so much more than just a session type feel, and I'm really happy and proud of the result. And thanks for acknowledging the playing, because that's what it's all about to me, is having great players and writing great songs. I don't know if that answered your question, but there was a bit of a backstory I had to get through, right?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing everything, because I think there's probably quite a few people that are watching this and are going to be watching this later that aren't familiar with your music or your band, and I was one of those people. So I was pleasantly surprised when I got a chance to look at it. I get a random amount of press releases every day in my inbox, and I look at every single one of them. And I like all kinds of music. I'm a guitar player myself. Well, I used to be.
Nice.
I haven't played it. I'm not you, but I did play it at one point. I still have it over there in the corner. But I was just like, man, listen to that playing. And then again, it was all the bass and the drums that were going on in the video track for Cypher, and then the other 6 tracks that are on the album that I also got a chance to listen to the advance of. And so you've got vocals on there, you've got guests on there. We're going to get into all of that. But how did you, since you write everything, did you record everything yourself too, like at home, or how did you piece all of this together?
Yeah, great question. Thanks. It's again, with the technology that's available now, you can do amazing things yourself. So my musical vision is my own, and I'm meticulous and stubborn, I guess, a little bit about that. So I write everything, and with multi-track now, so I would everything starts with a riff. Like the guitar is the king, of course, and everything starts with a riff. So I sit every day. I'm sitting beside my Les Paul right now, and every day I sit with that guitar or one of the others, and I come up with riffs, and they just come. Some days better than others, and once I have a riff, I will put it into my software and mess around with it, and change the speed, change the I might, if it's in 8, I might put it in 7 just to see what that sounds like, or 5. Just mess around with time, all kinds of different things until I have something that I go, wow, okay, there it is, right? And once I have that, then I back up and I find drums. So I'm not a drummer, and I don't understand drumming, and I hope I never do. But it's, again, there's tools out there that are amazing for drums, and you can buy loops of actual drummers playing. Like they're not MIDI drums, or they're not me tapping on a keyboard or something like that. It's an actual guy played a loop, and I've got thousands of these things. So I can sync them to the time, and I just find patterns that are interesting to match my riff. And then once I flesh out the drums, I play the bass, and then once I have a song, I write the words, and I sing a ghost vocal track, which is horrifying. But the phrasing and the a sense of melody is all I'm trying to convey to someone who can actually do it. So when I hand over my songs, they're I would say 100% done, and then the players just do their magic to it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense of how you're piecing things together and basically demoing it to the point where you're happy with it before you send it off to a player to put a bass line or a drum track to it, that instinctively like what you want to hear, and then just have them put their style and their flavor on top of it in terms of how they may perhaps approach the instrument. Have you ever had somebbe like a player that maybe went a little too overboard, and you kind of like, hey, can you kind of rein that in? That's not exactly how I had it in the demo.
It's another great question, and it's very funny because one of the players on this Project Cypher record was Brian Beller, who's well known for Aristocrat, Steve Vai, and Joe Satriani. Like he's an amazing player, and he's such a great human, like just a super duper guy. And so one of the songs on Project Cypher, he got all the songs, and he goes, great, riffy, I love riffy, and I'm going to work on this. And I had composed a bass part that was complicated and contrapuntal. Like I spent a lot of time figuring out a great bass line to complement a tricky, notey riff. And he emailed me back and said, I'd like to throw this out. And it's too much. It's because you've got so much going on with the guitar. If I do what you've done with the bass, I can do it if you want, but if I do what you put down for the bass, it's going to sound like mush, because there's just too much going on. Because Thomas Lang is obviously a monster on the drums, so he's got a lot going on his own, right? So if you add a busy bass part, so he just mirrored the guitar, and he just basically the bass part just follows the guitar. So it's kind of the opposite of what you asked, where I love busy, and the busier the better. And he actually took busy and he made it not busy. And the song is Sorceress. It's not out yet, but you can listen and you can hear how the bass really drives the song, and it made such a difference to the vibe, because all of a sudden the song it's like being pushed along by the bass instead of this notey King Crimson-y mess. It's so these guys are interesting because they wanted to do what was best for the song, not necessarily make it as wanky as possible. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense too. I mean, especially with the caliber of musicians that you have been working with on this record, that they're going to kind of want to maybe, yes, like they said, I could do exactly what you have, but here's my thoughts. I think we should actually pull back and not have it be so busy, and then leave it up to you. Basically, say, yeah, just give that a go, or it could be like, no, I still want it the way that I had it, and kind of go back to it. Have you ever, or maybe you did this, did you ever throw out an idea to some of these collaborators where you only had not all of the pieces together, or was it like every single thing, like this is 100%, like you said earlier, how I want it, or did you have like one idea where it's like, hey, here's this riff, what do you guys still think you want to do with this? Did you ever do anything like that, even just for fun?
Not with these guys, no. Okay. No, it was tight and buttoned down. Everything's to a click, and I would send them the stems, so basically a composite guitar track, bass track, drum track, so they could separate them and mute them as they whatever the process was. But no, there was no collaboration. It was, they did their thing, and for sure, and with some of the vocals, Mark would take mine and go, yes, I like what you did, I like the melody, and I'll just do it kind of, do it properly. And then on other ones, he took it in his own direction. Like, he phrased it differently. Some of them he placed the words differently and in different spots. So Mark was probably the only one who kind of went off on his own. Everybody else kind of pretty much stuck to the script, I would say.
Okay. And was there any thought to shopping the album around to any kind of independent labels or major labels, or it's kind of, no, I just want to control this and make sure that it gets out, put out the way that I want it?
I love to play the guitar. I love to write songs. I think I'm pretty good at both, and I'm probably the world's worst marketer. So I struggle with that, and I don't know why, but the first record, I think I really like the first record too. I'll send you one. But there's some really good songs on there, and we played them live, and they worked well. They were well received, but I don't think I gave it a real chance. And with the new one, with these players, and the investment that I have in that, I contacted John Asher Media out of Montreal, for some help, because he knows what to do and I don't know what to do. So, the idea of labels, we haven't really discussed, and I guess we'll see what happens. If I get a little traction out in the world and somebody likes this stuff, then, I guess we'll take it from there. But for the moment, I just really wanted to be able to put my music in front of as many people as possible, because sitting in my hard drive, it doesn't do anybody any good, right?
Yeah, no, I understand, and I interview quite a few independent artists, and that's actually one of the things that I like, because those folks are doing everything for the most part themselves, and so there's that middleman's basically gone, or a middle woman, and so if you're listening to something, you kind of know there's that little extra oomph that came from the artists themselves, which I always like. I kind of use the analogy of like a baseball analogy, that I like short A ball to high A baseball to double A, triple A, and then the show of the Major League Baseball. So I like all the different levels. Doesn't matter where you're at. I always find something interesting in it. And I think same thing is my approach to music, that you might send me a demo that sounds like it was recorded in a garbage can, but I might still find something that resonates with me about it. All the way up to something like what you've done, which is clearly not that, where it's like,
thanks.
Top players, top production, everything just sounds stellar. And yeah, that's something really to be proud of, that this is an independent release and it sounds that good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, and it's probably maybe too early to tell with, the whole pandemic lockdown situation being so different around the world, and live events, pausing for a long time and slowly kind of coming back, and hopefully it stays that way. But do you have any plans, or maybe even just hopes, to perform some of these songs live down the road?
I really hope so, Mark. It's because playing live is such a different animal. Like, it's almost like two different things, right? Because when I sit in my little room, like, the cover of the record, that's me sitting in front of computers and going through this stuff to create it. And it's a joy to do that, of course. But there's something about standing in front of a Frank Marshall and playing your own songs again. It's so cool. And I really would love to do that again, with these new songs. I think they would translate really well live, and be, there's an excitement to it, because there's so many guitars on these tracks. Like, any given song, there could be 20 or 25 different guitars in any moment. So to take that and then have the challenge of translating that into a live situation I love that. So it would be super cool. So I'm hoping that I'd be able to, rally a group of musicians to do this live for sure.
Okay, yeah, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head that the material to me sounds like something that could translate very, very well live, and that's saying something considering how complex it is. So, and that you also said that it's two different beasts, the recording studio versus being on a stage in front of people where you basically got one shot. And it kind of leads me to another question, though, is what is your guitar background? Like you said, you've been playing for many, many years. Did you take lessons, self-taught, a bit of both?
Well, it's a funny thing. Like I started when I was probably, I don't know, 7 or 8. That's about right when kids can start playing guitar. Some will start younger, but it's hard. I've taught guitar too, and if you teach any younger than 8 years old, it's tough for them to even get their hand around the neck, right? So, 7 or 8, I think I started. And I took lessons, and I went through that whole, whatever standard Berkeley type, program, and learned all the notes and learned all the key change signature, like, read music. I can read music and all that. Not well, I'm a lousy reader, but at least I can get through it. And I understand the theory. And just kind of, it was one of those things where I probably took lessons for 5 or 6 years at least. And then, it would be one of those things where my lessons were always Thursday night. And, Thursday I'd race home from school, grab the guitar out and try and rip through the lesson so I didn't look like an idiot in front of the teacher. But I would never practice. Like, I loved the guitar, but there was no outlet. It seemed it was just sitting there. Like, I didn't know what to do with it. And then I do remember it very clearly. I was probably 14, and I went into my lesson, and my regular teacher was not there, and there was this dude sitting there as a supply teacher, whatever you want to call it, and he had a Les Paul sitting on his lap. I didn't even know what a Les Paul was at that time, but I sit down and he goes, "Let's put that away." And he puts my old crappy acoustic in the corner, and he drops this Les Paul on my lap. And he says, "Give that a try." And it was unbelievable, the feeling. I still remember it. That was many years ago. And he said, "What do you like to listen to?" And I don't know. "April Wine, how's that?" He goes, "How about I Like to Rock?" And I still remember, even though all that time, he showed me how to play I Like to Rock, just sitting there right then and there. And he showed me how easy it was to learn it by ear, because I already knew how to play the guitar. And I never took another lesson after that. I went home, and my parents bought me an electric guitar and a crappy amp, and I was in all the way. And there's 10 million hours of guitar playing between then and today, and I still love it, every second of it.
That's awesome that you've been so dedicated for so many decades to the instrument. I know I kind of have a somewhat similar story, that when I took lessons initially, but I started off with an electric, which I still have somewhere in my house here. That was a cheap import from Korea or whatever it was. But I had my first guitar instructor was very closed-minded. He only liked certain artists, and so if you brought him something that he wasn't into, which was pretty much everything I brought him, he's just kind of like, but he knew he was getting paid, so he tried to learn it. But then he moved on, and his replacement was completely the other way around. He was super open-minded, got excited about anything you brought in, and then it just kind of made me feel like, oh, I can actually, the music, well, one, the music I like is okay, and then two, that maybe this is a better approach to how I should approach the instrument and music in general, is to try to have an open mind about things. And I carry that to this day, those lessons I got from my guy, back in, gosh, that was like junior high into high school. And so I think about, and I taught guitar for a real short period of time, and I'd have a student bring something in. I had to kind of remind myself, just because maybe it's not my bag in terms of genre or even just the song itself, so this could be like this kid's, Led Zeppelin to them or whatever. And so I don't want to do what my first guitar teacher did to me. And so, take the approach from the second guitar teacher, learn it, get excited about a certain part, and then, see if the student can come back with it, and then you kind of go from there. And I think that's what really kind of led me on this strange path into eclectic arts, where it's just like this whole myriad of arts that I like, including music genres. So, but I will always be a geek for anyone that can, work their way around an instrument, especially the guitar, like you can. And so it's like, I'm going to take real sharp notice with something like that when it comes out of my speaker.
Thanks. That's cool.
Yeah, and I was curious too about them. So you have the music video up on YouTube for Cypher. Is that something that you edited together, or who was the creative behind that?
No, so the it's funny because I initially I only had 6 songs, and then the bass player on that track, Jason Henry, he was in the Ring when we were an actual like live band, let's say. So he played on the first record, and he did some live shows with us, and then he had the personal commitments that he couldn't carry on with that. But in doing this, he loves the studio, and he loves sitting at his desk. He is that guy, on the cover too. So he was looking for something like an instrumental to prop up the record with one more song, and I had Cypher that I have dozens of songs. I pulled that out, and he went, "Wow, that's the one." So we recorded it, put it out there, and then he has an amazing talent for video production, and he created that video himself. I had nothing to do with that. I did the music, that's all. He made that video. I think it's spectacular.
Yeah, it's a great combination of you guys playing obviously the track, and I'm curious. So, is there going to be, speaking of like future things, is there another video in the works that'll come out from the album down the road, or what else is coming up for the band and the project?
Yeah. So the second single will be "The Light," and he's got that video almost buttoned down as well. So there's a performance. We did a performance of it, and then he does his thing with adding those background effects and clips and that sort of thing to make it visually be more exciting than just four guys sitting there playing, which is for the geeks for sure, but not for everybody. So we're trying to broaden it a little bit, and I think there'll be at least one more, maybe I'm thinking maybe 2. Why not, right? So visual is such a key thing, I think, in any kind of music interaction these days. So I'll do as many videos as I can. I might even do them all, just playthroughs or something, just to add that visual element for sure.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, and I think just coming from a lot of the guests that I've had the pleasure of interviewing, it's smart to do as many videos as you can, and it could be playthroughs, it could be lyric videos, it could be any combination of these things. A live acoustic version of something, because it helps stretch out your reach with your project, especially if you don't get a chance to actually tour, because obviously right now, who knows what's going to happen with things in the next 6 months to a year. So that's a way to kind of keep poking yourself out there. And me being the person that I am, are you going to be putting out any kind of physical version of this, like a CD, vinyl, cassette, anything that somebody can actually have in their hand? Or is it going to be strictly digital?
I love records and CDs. I love them, and I can't quite see that. I've got thousands of them, and to me, it's critical to have that physical copy. So I just got actually an email maybe an hour ago that my CDs will be here tomorrow. So yes, so I'll have CDs. I'd love to do a vinyl if there's demand. We'll see. CDs I wanted to have for sure, and if there's any kind of demand at all, like you have to have minimums for vinyl, and they're expensive. So I don't want to make them for nothing. So if there is demand, I will do that too. But definitely CDs. They'll be here tomorrow. I'll send you one.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we're probably from a similar mindset. I love physical media. I've got all my CDs over there, and then when I have a chance to support artists that I've had a chance to interview, then I play their stuff and I do the whole thing. So it won't sit in a box somewhere. If it shows up in my mailbox, it's getting unwrapped or whatever and stuck into my player. So
awesome.
Yeah, and it makes sense too that you're being smart about the vinyl thing, because if there's not enough demand, then it'll end up being sitting in a box in your garage, and that's
right.
That's nowhere for it to be. But it seems like it's nice that even younger generation, there's more and more of them coming around, at least to the vinyl side of things, where they're not, they're kind of, oh, what is this? It's got beyond the kitschiness. It's become like, no, I actually like this. And it actually, in some ways, sounds better depending on what you like, hearing things analog. So it's nice to see someone who's 20 getting into that kind of thing.
Right. Agreed.
Cool. So, how do people get a hold of the CD and following the band and everything else? Where can they find you?
Right. So probably the easiest place is the website, So it's just the ring.ca with a W. So ring.ca, it'll have links there to everything. The album doesn't actually release until May 28th. So on May 28th, I'll have some sort of ability to purchase physical copies through the website, and obviously it'll be available through all the digital platforms. So on May 28th, everything should be tight.
Okay, perfect. And I'll make sure to put the website link down in the YouTube description for people that are watching this now or watching this later. You can go right down to what Don just said, and then you can click on the official site and see what's coming up and everything else that's going on with the band. And Don, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate you putting out this kind of music because I love it, and also I really like what you had to say. I think you're doing everything the right way. So I wish you every success in the world. And if you want to come back on later, and maybe we'll kind of figure out the video aspect of this, then we can do a round two, and maybe around after the album comes out, like maybe early June or something. We can reconnect.
That would be fantastic.
And talk about it. We'll go in depth to all 7 tracks.
Cool. That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good night up there in Canada, and stay safe.
Yep. Thanks for doing what you do too. Really appreciate this.
Thank you, Don. Thank you for saying that. And yeah, have a good night.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.